I never believed in things like ghosts. But now I do, and here's the story that changed my mind. About 2 years ago, I was working at a convenience store. This convenience store was the kind that closed at 11 p.m., a rural-style storefront. It wasn't actually because of a lack of customers, but rather due to complaints from nearby residents. That day, I was working with my junior, Kobayashi, and it was 10:45 p.m. It was almost time to close. Even though the closing time was 11 p.m., we actually clocked out at 11:30 p.m. So, we usually prepared to close early and then spent time reading manga. That day was no different. It was already 11 p.m. We locked the door, turned off the lights, and started reading manga in the back. The doorbell rang. Since someone had come, I asked Kobayashi to check it out. I asked Kobayashi to take a look while I set the surveillance camera to the entrance. From the surveillance camera, I saw a woman standing there. She had long hair and was wearing a white dress, but I couldn't see her face clearly. After checking, Kobayashi came back into the view of the surveillance camera, took a quick look outside, and then returned. There was a woman standing outside, and under these circumstances, Kobayashi should have opened the door. Our convenience store often had customers coming after closing, probably not expecting us to close at 11 p.m. So, this happened frequently, and each time we would apologize and then ask them to leave. Because the cash register had already been settled, things would get complicated. Thus, as the senior, I reminded Kobayashi, who had only taken a quick look and returned. However, Kobayashi told me that he didn't see any woman. The woman was just outside the door. It was impossible not to see her. This guy was really slacking off at work. I thought this, but Kobayashi was the type who would act oblivious even when pointed out his mistakes. So, he probably just found it too troublesome to deal with. Well, since it had already happened, let it be. The woman had probably left anyway. I switched the surveillance camera back to normal mode, and we resumed reading manga. 10 minutes passed. I casually looked at my watch. It was 11:15 p.m. Would we be able to finish in 15 minutes? Thinking this, I suddenly looked at the surveillance camera, which was showing the liquor area. Suddenly, the screen switched to the magazine area. At that moment, the woman from before appeared again outside the glass opposite the magazine area. She seemed to be looking at the surveillance camera. Not looking at the camera, but rather, it felt like she was looking at me through the camera, which was uncomfortable. The next instant, the screen switched to the bento area. I told Kobayashi that the woman who rang the bell earlier had appeared again. At this point, I just thought it might be a prankster or someone a bit odd. I decided to go open the door, just as I was about to stand up. But at that moment, Kobayashi exclaimed in disbelief, staring at the monitor. I looked at the monitor, which showed the snack area. However, the woman who had been outside the store was standing there, this time with her back to the camera. Kobayashi panicked. It wasn't surprising, the door was definitely locked, and there was no sound of someone picking the lock. Moreover, from confirming her outside the store to now, it had been less than 20 seconds, it was almost impossible even with a key. I told myself and Kobayashi to stay calm. I fixed the camera on that snack area. The woman didn't move. At that moment, the phone rang. Kobayashi and I were startled by the phone ringing. I suddenly realized something. Looking at the monitor, the woman had disappeared. I frantically pressed the monitor's switch button. No abnormalities in the magazine area. No abnormalities in the snack area. No abnormalities in the liquor area. There was an abnormality at the cash register. She was there, standing inside the cash register area, facing away. Kobayashi was pointing at the monitor in panic. At this time, I was almost certain she wasn't human. Honestly, I was more panicked than Kobayashi. Although I didn't believe in ghosts, I was often immersed in the supernatural sections of internet forums, never imagining I'd encounter something like this. The woman was still standing there, facing away. What should we do? What were we supposed to do? Observing the surroundings, we decided to escape through the back door. There were 2 doors leading to the outside, a front and a back door, with the front door passing through the cash register and the back door opposite the cash register. But, even if we went out the back door, we had to pass through the store and open the door to get out. That way, we would definitely encounter the woman, which would be dangerous. I rapidly considered these in my mind. At that moment, Kobayashi screamed. I looked at the monitor, to find that while her body was facing away, her face had turned 180 degrees towards the camera. Her mouth seemed to be smiling. Though I didn't make a sound, honestly, I nearly peed myself. I couldn't make a sound, but honestly, I thought I would scream. The woman was still staring at us in an unnatural pose. Kobayashi, half crazed, was shouting and turned off the monitor's power. Kobayashi was completely panicked. Suppressing my inner fear, I told Kobayashi that I planned to rush to the back door. Honestly, at that moment, I thought we would definitely encounter the woman before opening the door, and somehow, I felt we would die. I grabbed the keys, and at that moment, the monitor turned on by itself. What was displayed on the monitor was a close-up of the woman. Her face had no smile at all, completely expressionless, which made her look even more terrifying. Her skin was pale, almost the color of a dead person, but her eyes were exceptionally beautiful, almost mesmerizing. Her eyes moved, she saw me, she saw Kobayashi too. But how was her face captured near the ceiling by the camera? I considered these useless things in an instant, like a rapid brainstorm. Strangely, despite the fear and shock, I still kept calm. Kobayashi was screaming that the ghost was going to kill us, his thoughts were in chaos. He rushed towards the back door. Kobayashi rushed to the back door, grabbed the doorknob. Kobayashi screamed and fell to the ground. I rushed to Kobayashi's side, trying to wake him, but there was no response. Was he unconscious? Suddenly, I looked towards the door. At that moment, I understood what Kobayashi had seen. Through the door's window, that woman was staring at us. And she was giggling, as if mocking us. I felt fear, but also filled with anger. Why did I have to experience this?
Get away from me!
I mustered courage, shouted with all my might. As a result, the woman stopped her giggling laugh, then her expression turned malevolent, her gaze sharp as she quietly left the window. Had she left? I felt relieved, but it was a short-lived feeling. Loud noises of objects being struck and shelves falling came from inside the store. I sat next to Kobayashi, shaking uncontrollably. Honestly, I felt I was about to have a mental breakdown. Then, the noise suddenly stopped, lasting about a minute. Had she calmed down? I tried to stand up. At that moment, the phone rang. It kept ringing incessantly. I hesitated whether to answer. The call we had received earlier was unnatural, drawing our attention, and now this phone was ringing at the perfect time. However, there was no other choice. I answered the call. At that instant, my mind went blank. The voice, not just from the phone, came from behind me. I slowly turned my head. It was a face emitting a terrifying laugh, but it looked unlike anything in this world. I passed out.
Wake up!
Someone was calling me. I slowly stood up. There were Kobayashi and the manager. The time was 4:50 a.m., probably because the store opens at 6 a.m., so the manager might have come to work. But no matter what, I couldn't understand how long I had passed out. The manager was questioning us about what exactly happened, his tone filled with surprise and anger. I told the manager everything, and he immediately wanted to check the surveillance footage. But I didn't want to see that face again. So, I told the manager to start watching from 11 p.m., then Kobayashi and I decided to calm down outside while waiting. 20 minutes later. The manager had seriously reviewed the surveillance footage but didn't find the woman from our story. However, since the footage showed shelves falling on their own, the manager didn't think we were lying. The manager seemed to believe us. He told us to go home and rest, also instructing us not to tell anyone about the incident. As for the footage, he would take care of it, and provide a reasonable answer to other employees. We nodded in agreement, then immediately left the store. Although it was past 5 a.m., it was still dark outside because it was winter. I drove to and from work, and Kobayashi walked. After experiencing such an event, I suggested driving Kobayashi home, feeling he would be very unsettled. Of course, I was scared too. Regardless, dwelling on it was pointless, forgetting was the right solution. I told myself this with courage, then got into the car. Kobayashi agreed to my request, but soon, I saw the look of terror on his face again. Kobayashi's mouth was agape, his eyes wide, staring at the store. I slowly turned back to look at the store. The manager was cleaning inside the store, and the woman's figure appeared behind him. I started the engine at the speed of light and drove out of the driveway. Kobayashi remained silent the whole way. After dropping Kobayashi off, I returned home. I collapsed onto the bed. I slowly closed my eyes, trying to calm down, wanting to forget.